Civilizations don't usually collapse overnight. They decline gradually, weakened by pressures that accumulate over generations. Understanding what makes societies stable requires examining what happens when that stability erodes. Throughout history, civilizations have risen to remarkable heights, only to fade away. The patterns of their decline often share common features. Environmental stress, economic strain, and institutional weakness tend to appear together, creating conditions that prove difficult to reverse. Consider the factors that maintain stability. A civilization needs reliable food production, functioning trade networks, and institutions that can adapt to changing circumstances. When these systems begin to falter, the effects ripple outward. Environmental pressures often develop slowly. Soil degradation reduces agricultural yields over decades. Deforestation changes local climates. Water sources become less reliable. These changes don't cause immediate crisis, but they make societies more vulnerable to disruption. Economic systems face similar gradual erosion. Trade routes that once brought prosperity may shift due to political changes elsewhere. Resource depletion increases the cost of essential materials. Infrastructure requires constant maintenance, and deferred upkeep accumulates into larger problems. Historians suggest that administrative complexity can become its own burden. As societies grow, they develop more layers of bureaucracy to manage their affairs. These systems require resources to maintain. When economic conditions worsen, supporting complex administration becomes more difficult. Social cohesion plays a crucial role in stability. Evidence indicates that widening inequality can strain the bonds that hold communities together. When large segments of the population lose faith in existing institutions, cooperation becomes harder to sustain. The loss of adaptability may be among the most critical factors. Societies that thrive often do so because they can adjust to new challenges. Rigid institutions, entrenched interests, or ideological commitment to outdated practices can prevent necessary changes. Research points to the interconnection of these factors. Environmental stress affects food production, which impacts economic stability, which undermines institutional capacity, which reduces the ability to respond effectively. Each problem makes the others harder to solve. The classic Maya civilization provides an instructive example. Between the 8th and 10th centuries, many Maya cities experienced significant population decline. Scholars have identified multiple contributing factors working together over time. Environmental evidence shows that the Maya homeland experienced several severe droughts during this period. Agricultural systems that had supported dense populations for centuries became less productive. The impact wasn't immediate, but sustained over decades. At the same time, the Maya political landscape had grown increasingly complex. Competition among city-states required substantial resources for administration and monument construction. These demands continued even as agricultural productivity declined. Social structures also showed signs of strain. Archaeological evidence suggests increasing inequality in the centuries before decline. Elite consumption remained high, while ordinary people's nutrition appears to have worsened. The construction of ceremonial centers continued even during periods of stress. Limestone quarrying and monument building required significant labor. These projects may have served important cultural functions, but they also diverted resources from agricultural infrastructure and maintenance. Trade networks that had connected Maya cities began to contract. Luxury goods moved less freely between regions. This reduction in exchange affected not just material wealth, but also the flow of information and ideas that had previously fostered innovation. Population density in urban centers had reached levels that required consistent agricultural surplus. When productivity declined, these concentrations became difficult to sustain. People couldn't simply produce more food through harder work when the environmental conditions had fundamentally changed. No single factor explains what happened. The combination of environmental stress, political competition, and social strain created conditions where recovery became progressively more difficult. Population centers that had flourished for centuries were gradually abandoned. The Roman Empire's long transformation offers another perspective. Over several centuries, the empire's administrative structure evolved to manage an enormous territory. This system required substantial resources and depended on continuous economic growth. When expansion slowed, the economic foundation shifted. Military costs remained high, but conquest no longer brought the same returns. Maintaining infrastructure across vast distances became more expensive relative to available revenue. Currency debasement reflects these economic pressures. The silver content of Roman coins decreased gradually over centuries, a sign of fiscal stress. This wasn't a sudden decision, but a slow erosion of monetary stability. Provincial regions became more self-sufficient over time, reducing economic integration. Local strongmen provided security when central authority weakened. These adaptations made sense individually, but further reduced the empire's cohesion. Climate research suggests that changing weather patterns affected Mediterranean agriculture during this period. Cooler temperatures and shifting rainfall patterns may have reduced productivity in some regions, adding environmental stress to existing challenges. The Antonine Plague in the 2nd century and subsequent disease outbreaks reduced population levels. A smaller workforce meant less agricultural production and fewer taxpayers to support imperial administration. Disease didn't cause decline by itself, but it compounded existing vulnerabilities. Urban centers that had depended on grain shipments from distant provinces faced supply disruptions. The logistics of feeding large cities became more precarious. Some urban populations declined as people moved to rural areas where food security seemed more reliable. The empire's response to these challenges sometimes created additional problems. Increased taxation to fund administration and defense placed greater burdens on a shrinking economic base. Regulations intended to stabilize the economy could reduce flexibility and innovation. The Khmer Empire in Southeast Asia demonstrates how infrastructure itself can become vulnerable. The hydraulic system around Angkor was an engineering marvel, supporting a large population through sophisticated water management. This system required constant maintenance and precise operation. Evidence indicates that extreme weather events, possibly related to broader climate patterns, placed stress on the network. Floods and droughts both posed challenges. As the system became less reliable, the population it supported faced increasing difficulty. The concentration of people around Angkor had been possible because of successful water management. When that system faltered, the density became unsustainable. Archaeological work shows that people gradually dispersed rather than experiencing sudden catastrophe. The grand temples remained, but the population shifted to areas where survival was more straightforward without complex infrastructure. These examples illustrate common patterns. Decline results from multiple reinforcing pressures rather than single causes. Systems that once promoted stability become harder to maintain under changing conditions. The time frame matters. Changes that unfold over generations can go unrecognized by those experiencing them. Each year might seem manageable, even as the overall trajectory shifts. Adaptability emerges as a crucial factor. Societies that could modify their practices, redistribute populations, or reorganize institutions sometimes navigated challenges successfully. Rigidity, whether cultural or structural, limited options for response. Modern scholarship emphasizes uncertainty in these reconstructions. Evidence remains incomplete, and multiple interpretations often exist. What appears clear is that civilizational decline involved complex interactions among environmental, economic, and social factors. Understanding these patterns doesn't provide simple lessons. Each civilization faced unique circumstances, and the specific combination of challenges varied. What remains consistent is the gradual nature of decline and the interconnection of contributing factors. Stability requires more than prosperity. It depends on institutions that can adapt, economic systems with resilience, and social structures that maintain cohesion under stress. When these elements weaken simultaneously, recovery becomes increasingly difficult. The civilizations we've examined didn't fail because of single catastrophic events. They declined as accumulated pressures exceeded their capacity to respond. Environmental changes, economic challenges, and institutional strain reinforced each other over time. The process took decades or centuries, marked by gradual transformation rather than sudden collapse. While many details remain uncertain, the historical record suggests that civilizational decline emerges from the slow erosion of the systems that once provided stability.